Hi guys, welcome back to the Financial Interest YouTube channel. My name's Dan. So in this week's video, I wanted to go over FIRE, or Financial Independence Retire Early. I wanted to look at what FIRE is, give my kind of views on it, and look if this is something that's actually achievable as well. So let's get on with the video. So first we need to look at what is FIRE. So obviously FIRE is Financial Independence Retire Early, and this was actually a movement which kind of started based on the 1992 book Your Money or Your Life, and that was by Vicki and Joe Dominguez. And the basic concept of FIRE is that you kind of have to kind of aggressively save a lot of money and also invest it. And the purpose of this is obviously to kind of be able to retire before the standard retirement age, which seems to be one of those things that's getting later and later, particularly in Western countries. And this is a movement that's been growing in popularity over recent years, particularly with millennials. And you can really break the FIRE part down into two sections. So you have the financial independence part and then the retire early. So obviously to achieve financial independence, you need to be able to have your kind of investments or passive income paying for your actual living expenses. And then obviously what that does is it makes retirement is kind of an optional thing for you. You can obviously retire, or you can, what I prefer to kind of think of it is you actually can do whatever you want with your time. So you can spend your time on kind of more things that are more important to you. And the financial independence part really gives you a choice of how you want to spend your time. You no longer have to work a job you don't like or anything like that, because now you have the freedom to spend your time as you wish. You may want to continue working. You may want to pursue like side project, perhaps that's like charitable work or something like that. But the point is here that once you have financial independence, that becomes your own choice, and it's not something that's out of necessity like it was before. So I also wanted to give this, the whole FIRE movement, a bit of context. So if you're really kind of looking at it, there's been a real growth in consumerism like in recent years. So obviously banks and everyone is trying to, and all the kind of advertisers, they're trying to get people to spend more money. And you can kind of get drawn into this really consumer lifestyle where you think like to kind of enjoy life, you have to keep buying more things. And then the banks will obviously like want you to take loans and credit cards, and then people get into debt. So the FIRE movement is kind of really like countering that. And if we look back to the global financial crisis back in 2007, 2008, a lot of people like kind of lost everything in that. They lost their houses. And I think this really kind of triggered a change in the way people think, and people now don't want to be kind of like saddled with huge amounts of debt. They're looking for a much more simple lifestyle. And along with that, this is bringing increasing pressure on kind of retirement ages. The retirement age seems to be increasing in a lot of countries as well. And almost parallel to this movement, you've seen kind of people looking to reduce their debts, like live kind of more frugally, and also just generally trying to cut their expenses. And obviously one of the biggest expenses is rent, which is why I think you've seen kind of a big growth in the movement of like reducing the cost of living, like tiny houses, particularly if you look at the US, Australia and New Zealand. That's kind of been like really like growing recently, because people don't want to kind of be carrying this debt forward into like later life. They want to get like houses paid off as soon as they can, and they don't need to live in like a 5-bedroom house. You may be fine in like a tiny house with just one room, because at least that way you have the financial freedom and you've kind of got rid of the whole rent side of things. And alongside that, some of these places are also off grid, so you're kind of helping the environment and at the same time reducing your like your electricity bills, water and that kind of thing as well. So there's three main pillars associated with FIRE. So the first way is you need to reduce your spending, so you can kind of do a lot of things with that. Obviously, first helps to clear off your debts. That's going to reduce your spending on that. Also, perhaps like you can reduce eating out and things like that. But it's just a lot of different ways to kind of cut your monthly costs. And then the second way would be you can obviously increase your earnings, whether you do that from taking on like another job or like a side hustle. You're kind of looking for more ways to make more money as well. And the third point is you need to kind of invest quite aggressively. So put your savings all into investments. And what you want to do is ideally you're looking to get into cash producing assets, because this is something that's going to be able to grow over time with inflation. So for example, you might be investing in the stock market. Eventually, like, you'll have companies that pay dividends, or you can also invest in real estate, like for example, a rental property. And that's something where those things can actually increase over time. So obviously inflation will come into play, and as inflation goes up, you'll be able to raise rental prices and things like that. But the key point is that you actually invest quite aggressively. And when I was looking into this, it looks like there's quite a lot of different types of fire. So you've obviously got the kind of regular fire, which is what I've been covering so far in the video. But then there's also lean fire, which is based on, like really extremely trying to cut off all your, expenses and things like that. There's fat fire, which kind of assumes you've got, you want to live a more luxury lifestyle, but probably to go along with that, you've also got higher earnings. And also there's Barista FIRE, which sounds like really cool. I like the idea of that one, but mainly probably because I like coffee. And that's the idea that you don't take as much of your money. You still kind of keep money coming in from a part-time job, but maybe you just don't want the stress of working in a company in the city and you want a little bit more freedom. So that still allows you to retire early, but you're kind of keeping your money topped up with a part-time job. And also Coast FIRE. And this is assuming kind of young people who are investing quite aggressively really early on. And then what this actually allows is for compounding to take effect, because obviously, as we know, compounding, kind of the longer time horizon you have, the more powerful it is. So these are a few of the different types of fire that I kind of discovered just when I was reading up a few things on the internet. So there is a thing called the FIRE number, and this is actually the number you need to work towards achieving to be able to actually live off your investments. To get your FIRE number, what you really need to be doing is you need to work out your living expenses, but they actually need to be your living expenses in the future, because obviously, circumstances may change. Maybe now you're just a couple, maybe in the future you'll have children, things like that. So that's something you need to consider. Will you be living in the same country? Perhaps you'll be living in a country that's like a lower kind of cost of living. An example would be me and my wife. We have a place in the Philippines because she's from there. Filipino kind of properties are much cheaper than obviously British properties in my case. So that's one of the reasons we kind of invested there, because we can kind of get better value for money, and also the cost of living there is less as well. So you really need to think about your future spend when you come to this amount as well. And there's an idea that what you actually need to save is 25 times your kind of annual expenses. And this also comes hand in hand with the 4% rule, which is kind of based on studies and is kind of a generally accepted rule that you can actually take 4% of the kind of total amount of your investments without actually depleting the total overall funds that you've got. So a kind of quick example would be if you think your future living expenses is $3,000 a month, you simply times that by 12 to get your $36,000, and then you would times that again by 25, and that would bring your total to $900,000. So that would be the number you need to hit to be able to kind of reasonably live off that amount per year. But there's a few things you just need to be aware of when, obviously thinking about the 4% rule, because this was calculated, obviously looking back at previous data. And as we know from other investing stuff, it's like past performance isn't going to be an indicator of future performance. You know, like quite a lot of things can change, and as they say, it's like you can't drive a car looking in the rear view mirror. So that's like an important kind of thing to think about as well. And there's going to be a lot of factors which affect this as well. So obviously, you don't know what's kind of going to happen to inflation going forward. There's been a lot of kind of talk that inflation's increasing a lot at the moment. So that might be one factor which can change the number, you know, quite significantly as well. And along with the inflation, obviously, stock market returns, these can vary quite significantly. So obviously, if you get into a, you know, like a period of the stock where the stock market doesn't move for a long time, that can also kind of impact your, you know, end amount of money. And if you're going for the sort of lean FIRE approach, remember that this is going to be really difficult to sustain if you're kind of cutting back on all the luxuries, you're not taking holidays, you know, this is kind of a big sacrifice. So you might want to consider like a sort of more dumbed down approach where you can still kind of enjoy things that are happening at the moment, because of course no one knows what's going to happen in the future either. And it's always good to be as conservative as possible when you're considering those numbers. A bit of new research shows that probably you can actually be higher than 4%, but I think obviously it's always best to aim on the conservative side. So if you can stick below 4%, that should be much safer. So I just want to kind of give like kind of my conclusions on the whole FIRE movement. I think it's like it's a really great thing, if for nothing else other than to get people to really start thinking about it, because I think education is kind of the most important part as well. Of course, you're not going to achieve financial independence if you don't have any plan to, and that's like one of the key things. I mean, for me, obviously, it's the financial independence, retire early movement, but for me, the most important part is the financial independence bit, because I mean, I don't, you know, like I enjoy my normal job anyway, so it's not like I'm not searching, you know, to get out of working in that sense. But at least if you've got financial independence, it gives you the choice and the options to kind of do whatever you want with your time, and in that sense, this is also what's known as being time rich. So you kind of have the choice of how you want to spend your time. So you can spend your time, you know, on any kind of passion projects that you have, and you don't have to be driven by money for that. And remember as well, you don't want to overcomplicate this. And probably more the way I'm going to kind of approach it is obviously, like I mentioned before, our house in the Philippines, maybe we'll try and get an investment property. And what I'm really trying to do is I'm just trying to build up my passive income. I'm very early on in that kind of process at the moment. At the moment, I don't even have any real passive income sources, unless you count. I'm not really counting dividends, because I'm not going to be removing dividends from like any investing accounts, because I'm just reinvesting those. But further down the line, the dividends obviously is going to play a part. But I'm just trying to build up enough passive income to cover all of my living expenses. So at the same time, I'm trying to reduce my expenses as well. And you can get passive income from a number of different ways. You could do it from like buying rental properties, also from dividends, and from owning your own business as well. So these are ways you should consider to kind of accelerate the journey towards financial independence. So that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a like. Also consider subscribing to the channel as well if you haven't already, and you can hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I'm releasing new videos. And please let me know in the comments what you think about the whole FIRE movement. Do you think it's realistic? Do you think it needs to be changed? Is it something that you're following? So I'm always interested to hear what you've got to say about that, so leave it in the comments below. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.